The Unfound Newsletter for September 2021. It's September 1st, 2021. Hard to believe. Seriously. It's crazy how fast this year has gone. I was just telling my brother last week that it seems like yesterday that he and I were at the Mecum car auction in Kissimmee, Florida. No, I didn't buy anything. And that was way back in January. Really, I have no idea where the time went. August saw me fly to Pennsylvania to see my dad for 9 days, August 2nd to August 11th. I went to my best friend Doug's 50th birthday party and saw some people I hadn't seen in 30 years. True story. I had no idea what they had been doing, but in one way or another, they knew about Unfound. Hey, I guess word gets around sooner or later. My dad and I really didn't do much. We drove around, we had some good meals, I played some disc golf at Slippery Rock University and Moraine State Park. I took him to a doctor's appointment, he's fine. That was about it. Oh, I set up a printer for his next door neighbor. That brought me back to one of my former jobs I had in Las Vegas. Now I'm back here in Florida. I had a horrible tournament in Orlando a couple weeks ago. So horrible that my mind was so frazzled, I backed my car into a tree. Disgusting. Because of it, I'm going to try a sports psychologist. Yes, really, I just can't seem to find that mental groove consistently enough to be competitive. I'll let you know how it goes. One place where I never have a mental groove problem is Unfound, so let's get started where we usually do. September 10th, Brenda Sika. September 17th, Laverta Sorrell. September 24th, Nicholas Shin. Other disappearances we are working on: Michael Van Zant, Jennifer Perry, Leanne Hosberg, Ashley Parlier, Ashley Simpson, no, not that Ashley Simpson, and Irma Markichian. 5th year anniversary. If any of you follow me on Facebook, my private account, you know I can be very self-deprecating, a very self-deprecating person. In fact, I would say that nobody makes fun of Ed Densel more than Ed Densel. So with no manufactured modesty at all, I tell you that nobody is more surprised that Unfound has made it to 5 years of existence more than I am. And I mean it. Why? Well, I'll tell you why. In fact, just to show how unsure I was of how long I could keep a podcast going by myself, think about these points. I used theme music to which I had no permission. I had a logo that was not original and simply downloaded from Google. I did not test any call recording apps before the first interview I did with Mary Lyle. I didn't start a discussion group on Facebook until November 2016. In fact, I didn't even start it. One of the listeners did. I didn't start a Facebook page until well into 2017, maybe even 2018. I didn't start a Patreon account or PayPal account until October 2017. I could go on. I think this all shows that I had no confidence in what I was doing. Why? Well, that other podcast that I created earlier in 2016, the one I never mentioned by name, only lasted 5 episodes. I had no confidence that I would be able to get anyone to interview. I soon discovered there were so many programs and people cranking out episode after episode after episode. How could a guy find his niche? Or is it niche? And for a long time, I felt I was just broadcasting into the abyss, which I now know is very familiar. A very familiar feeling when somebody starts any type of program. Is anybody paying attention? If somebody finds the program, will he or she come back to listen again? Does anybody give a dang? Somewhere within all of that, Unfound found a place. How? Well, I've talked about it before, but I will talk about it here now. I think what helped was that I knew basically nothing about the true crime community. For example, to this day, I've never listened to an episode of Serial. I've never checked out other true crime podcasts to see what others were doing. Really, until I started Unfound, I didn't realize how many true crime podcasts there were. I know I went about it the exact opposite of the way any expert would suggest. However, in doing so, I organically created something different. And I think this is why Unfound, although not the most popular podcast out there, leaves an impression on people and does better work than any other program. For example, these are the qualities you will not find together in any other program out there. At least that's what I've been told by listeners. The episodes are always long, way longer than is recommended. The interviews are unedited. They're not a person talking, then the host splices in the questions after. There's no endless theorizing just to take up time. The disappearance itself isn't even mentioned until about an hour into the episode. There is an effort to understand why people go missing by referencing other disappearances as examples. I reiterate, none of these qualities were necessarily planned. I didn't listen to a bunch of other podcasts to see what they were doing, then decided to do something different. Instead, all those qualities came about because I thought they were what was needed to cover a disappearance adequately. To put it simply, what kind of missing persons program would I listen to? Well, that's what Unfound is. What I would want to experience if I were one of you. And really, to this day, I consider myself to be one of you. I just happen to have the microphone. I produced the program with you in mind. What is the best way to conduct the interview? What is the best way to make sure all of you understand what happened? How can I put you in that moment of time when the disappearance occurred? How do I go about getting all the information from the guest so that you can analyze it yourselves? And most importantly, how do I make sure you think independently? Those questions are always on my mind. Always. Every single episode. Yes, the first goal is to serve the guests. They are the ones who are affected. They are the ones who have been hurt. They are the ones who need relief from years of pain. However, it's through all of you that they will find the answers and that relief. However, I must be honest. There have been shaky times. Unfound is not a moneymaker. Not that I care about that. None of this was ever meant to be a business pursuit. But I will admit, and there was some kind of cosmic thing going on here. But when my mother became sick in 2016, of course, as you know, she died in November 2018. There was no bigger fan of Unfound. There will never be a bigger fan of Unfound than Loretta Dentzel. Yet due to financial arrangements she made for me years ago, her passing put Unfound on as solid financial footing as probably any true crime podcast out there. This is why I say that I will always produce Unfound in her memory. This is also why when the occasional troll comes out of the woodwork to say you're just making money off the backs of these people who've been hurt, I respond, I would be making more money if I stopped Unfound right at this second, because I've surely put more money into it than I will probably ever get out of it. Financially, I would have been better off lying on the beach playing disc golf and meeting women for the last 5 years than doing Unfound. However, as I've come to believe, this is what I'm meant to do, no matter the cost. This is what comes to my mind on the 5th anniversary of Unfound. The update episode. Number 9. The 9th one. 9 times. It reminds me of the principal in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. 9 times. We've come a long way since the summer of 2018 when my assistant Cherie said, hey, maybe it's about time you did an update episode to keep everyone informed of what's going on, Ed. Thank you, Cherie. Right away, I knew that it would become a thing, to use a 21st century lingo term. Really, how could it not? On the other hand, I have to admit that had Cherie not brought it up, I'm not sure I would have come up with the idea of doing actual update episodes on my own. Sure, I would have told all of you what was happening using the live show on Wednesday nights, but episodes devoted solely to updates, not so sure. In fact, probably the reason it never occurred to me until Cherie mentioned it is because I wasn't sure I could make periodic episodes containing updates. What if there were no updates? Little did I know how often updates would occur. Hey, This is Ed learning on the job. As far as the length of time between them, 4 months, that was decided by all of you. Well, some of you in the discussion group way back in 2019. I think the choices were 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, and once a year. 4 months was the easy winner, and it really does seem like the perfect period. Sure, the update episodes are long, usually about 4 hours, but you're all used to Unfound's crazy lengths by now anyway. How do I keep up with 225 disappearances at this point? Well, I really can't. I would love to, but I can't. So here's how these update episodes work. First, you must keep in mind that many of the updates included in an update episode have already been discussed by me previously during the live shows on YouTube. When updates happen and I feel I can talk about them, I do. And the live shows are the easiest and quickest ways to do so. So I keep a list from the previous months of what updates came up during the live shows. Let's just call that my cheat sheet. Second, the guests are more than happy to keep me informed of what's going on. For example, Jolene Olney, Joe Bain's sister, contacts me all the time with what she's doing, and I deeply appreciate it. I love to be informed, and I love to offer my advice to a guest like Jolene as she continues to do great work. Meaning it's not like I have to track down former guests for every one of these disappearances, all 225 of them. Most of the time, they come to me. Third, all of you listeners keep me informed. All of you have your fingers on the pulse of at least one disappearance that is special to you. For example, a disappearance that occurred close to where you live. Or it could even be one where you know the family. So all of you let me know what's going on. Fourth and last, after all that, if I get the feeling that I might be missing some updates, for example, maybe I heard something about a break in a case, but then the news seemed to fade away, I will go to some of the Facebook pages of disappearances Unfound is covered. I'll message some of the guests who I haven't talked to in a while. Then to really make sure, I do a Google search using the names of the missing people. When all that is done, I then believe the update episode is ready to be written. Have I ever missed a big piece of news in an update episode due to an oversight? I don't think I have. I might have missed a search or a police statement, something like that, but people being charged, remains being found, big info like that, I don't think I've missed any. However, I will never say I'm perfect. The sad part is even after 9 update episodes, there are still many disappearances that have never been mentioned. Many. I'm not going to name them, but I have counted them. Too many. Why do some cases seem to always have updates and many have had none over the last 3 years? I don't know. If I knew, I would tell you. All I can say is I have tried to objectively analyze why this is, and I have no firm answer. Some disappearances go hot to cold to hot to cold to hot to cold. Then others are cold and never get hot for a very long time. The topic is the exact reason I read off all the names at the end. This was not planned in the first update episode. However, after recording it, I felt horrible that many missing people were not mentioned. So I read off the list like they do for all the victims of 9/11. Back then, in the summer of 2018, there were not even 100 names. Now there are 225, and the list will continue to grow and grow and grow. I could foresee a day where I'm reading off 1,000 names. All of Unfound's missing people will always be remembered. I've been told other true crime podcasts do not do update episodes. Yes, they keep their audience apprised of updates. However, the hosts don't do presentations where there are nothing but updates. Why is this? I don't know. You'd have to ask the people that run those other programs. Maybe they don't think it's a good idea. Maybe they think that however they keep their audiences informed is good enough. Maybe it just hasn't occurred to them yet. I really don't know. However, I will say this. I think it's because it's just easier for me to do updates than it is for most other hosts. Why? Because I'm only in one community, the missing persons community. That's all Unfound does. I don't have one foot in the missing persons realm, and another in the unsolved murders realm, and another one in the serial killer realm, and another in the conspiracy theory realm, etc., etc., etc. Yes, I know I only have 2 feet. Because of that, I believe I have an easier time keeping up with everything that goes on. Not to mention the missing persons community is somewhat quote-unquote small. Many of Unfound's guests know each other, so it's not unusual for me to get an update on a particular disappearance from a guest from a totally different episode. That really does happen. Whereas other programs cover a much wider array of topics, and it very well could be that given the additional items they cover, there just aren't as many updates to report on. For example, if some of these other programs cover unexplained phenomena, Bigfoot, UFOs, etc., how many updates are really going to happen in those categories? Probably not many. So I think the kind of program Unfound lends itself to providing updates in a much easier manner. We do the same thing week after week. We stick to one category. And within that category, there are things that happen once in a while, especially once you get to having covered 225 disappearances. Really, just through statistics alone, a person would expect there to be new news happening every 4 months. For me, the only thing I don't like about the update episodes is all the talking. Just me. For 4 hours. I don't know how you stand it. Upcoming speaking engagements. October 12th, Northwestern State University in Natchitoches, Louisiana. I know I'm killing the name of that town. And November 4th, Nova Southeastern University. I believe that's in Davie, Florida. And more dates to be coming soon. Toby Anderson. This is how things usually go. You prepare to do a very complete, very comprehensive, all-encompassing, informative update episode. Then right after it comes out, you get more update information. True, Toby's disappearance did get mentioned in the episode. And I have to say that this was surprising given that the case is about 35 years old. Really, what are the odds that Unfound features a 35-year-old disappearance, then just a month or 2 later, new information comes to light? The odds are very low. There's no way I could predict something like that. Or Unfound had something to do with new information being discovered, but I'm not so sure about that. Still, since August 27th, 2021, there have been further developments. I'm not at liberty to tell you specifics. However, if you were to go to Denise McGarrity's Facebook page, you will read everything there is for the public to know. In a nutshell, I think the search for Toby is near its end. Ed, what does this mean? Thank you for asking. My belief is that this will turn into a homicide investigation. I think the suspicions will go right back to where they have been for many years, Toby's uncle. In fact, I think the interview you, the audience, could hear between the line. I'll read that again. In fact, I think in the interview, you, the audience, could hear between the lines to know that Denise believed the uncle is responsible. What this all also means is that Toby's disappearance/death is even more likely connected to another disappearance that Unfound has yet to cover. What disappearance is it? I can't say. But the two could very well be related to each other, and it's one of those things where if the first one, Toby's, is a murder, then the second one must be as well. Final topic for this newsletter, and this is already done, but I'm going to read it anyway. Because I got together with Dr. Telesco on September 2nd, but I'm reading this recording on September 12th. Dr. Telesco, since it's happening tomorrow, I suppose I should remind you to check out the next show with my favorite professor. Grace and I will be discussing the anatomy of a missing persons case. The topic was her suggestion, and I loved it immediately because the presentations I plan to make at Grace's and other schools is along those lines. What do people who are thinking about going into law enforcement need to know about missing persons cases? I anticipate my talk with Grace will be a little different than others. Why? Because in most of the others, we've talked about a specific disappearance. I end up talking for most of the time, going over the circumstances and investigation. Then there's 15 minutes of questions and answers and answer time at the end. This time, I'm hoping for a little more back and forth, and that is actually what happened on September 2nd. That's all I have for this month. A little shorter than usual, mainly because I just did an update episode, and many things I said there would usually be written here. So if you haven't listened to it yet, go to iTunes /Spotify /Podomatic /Audible /iHeart / a bunch of other places, wherever, and listen to update episode number 9. Thanks for reading.